The basement was dry. It made sense for Dad to store all sorts of paper figurines in here. Kai directed his flashlight to the opposite end, where he noticed a dark opening in the wall. "Hey, that's an old coal catch!" he called with excitement, and ran over to the wall to try and force the hatch open. "Damn it! I bet my left shoe that there's something standing on top of this." "You're probably right. This hatch is right next to the office window where we found the footprints. It's got to be one of the trash cans. If you remove it, we could probably open the hatch easy enough." "Great," said Kai. "Let's do it right now." "What's with the hurry?" asked Louise. "Well, isn't that obvious?" replied Kai, and didn't sound like an 8-year-old, but like a professional detective with 28 years of work experience. If, when over the course of our investigation it becomes necessary for us to leave the house at night, this hatch is the ideal exit point. "I don't know, my dad would totally notice that." I hesitated. "Ah," Kai waved me off. "Your dad seems pretty relaxed. I'm sure we can get away with it. And you got to admit that climbing through this hatch is a much better option than using the front door." Kai pulled me and Louisa back to the staircase. "Come now, we shouldn't forget our real objective here. Let's go and collect all of your dad's shoes." We left the basement, something I was just all too glad to do, and took the carton with us. My dad's shoes were all strewn into a remote corner of the hallway. Welly boots, sneakers, fancy shoes for church service, shoes to walk through the worst of slush after thaw, and so on and so on. All we had to do was scoop them up and empty our arms into the large carton. The carton was just big enough to fit the entirety of my dad's footwear collection, but in the end the carton got so heavy that I needed Kai to help me actually carry it outside. Once we'd arrived at the office window, we just flipped the carton upside down and took inventory of the shoes. While Louise and I kept hovering over the footprints, Kai noticed the trash can that blocked the coal hatch and pulled it aside so that he would be able to open the hatch from the inside next time around. Then he turned back around to help us out. "Here we have a clear footprint courtesy of our unknown suspect." He pointed towards a particularly crisp print in the snow in front of us. "Our thieves' shoes have a pattern that's surrounded by these sort of likes and looks like a boomerang with 3 instead of 2 ends. Your dad doesn't have a single shoe with an even similar pattern. Not this one, and no, that one doesn't fit either." He took one shoe after the other and compared it to the prints in the snow. The moment it became evident the patterns didn't match, he threw the shoe over his shoulder where it landed next to the garage door. "All of your dad's shoe profiles are so worn down that they could have never left such a clear imprint in the snow," concluded Kai. "Tell Anna, does your dad ever buy new shoes?" "Rarely," I said. "He usually manages to wear shoes with half a dozen holes in them even through the deepest winter. He rather lays them out with newspapers than actually buy new ones because he prefers donating money to Bread for the World than buying new clothes." "That's one way to look at it," shrugged Kai. "A loss for the local shoemaker and a win for the starving children in Africa. In any case, there's no way those imprints came from your dad." "In other words," I called excitedly, "it was the thief who stood here in front of my dad's office window and watched him put away the donations for the month." Kai and Louise nodded, both with appropriately severe expressions, as if that train of thought alone was enough to deliver our burglar to the next best prison. In that moment, we heard the sound of a window being opened. "Anna, you and your friends can come in for dinner," Janine called out from the first floor. "We're on our way," I called back and ran back to the house immediately followed by Kai and Louise because obviously it only took the mention of dinner for us all to realize how hungry we were. Detective work, especially in the snow and in dark basements, was known to boost the appetite of third graders dramatically. As per usual, dinner wasn't anywhere close to fancy, but that was how I liked it best. Janine and Dad had made a towering stack of light brown, fluffy pancakes and laid out an assortment of sweeteners, cinnamon sugar, applesauce, and strawberry jam around the main plate. We scrambled briefly over a seating arrangement before my dad spoke a swift thank you prayer and we could finally eat. We'd already chewed and eaten our fair share of pancakes each before we came back to the burglar. The three of us are convinced that the burglar has got to be one of your neighbors. I spoke up even though we hadn't really talked about that particular theory yet. Where did you get that idea from? Asked my dad, already looking down at me with a very indignant expression. Well, I started, and Kai and Louise turned to me excitedly as if they expected me to tell them the legal name, address, and phone number of the thief. And I couldn't even finish the sentence I'd been trying to start because Bubblegum had just discovered the magic of repeatedly hitting his plate with a spoon. He seemed to amuse himself royally because he started on making deafening noise while at the same time managing to spread the sugar from his pancake over the entire table. Unfortunately for him, Dad and Janine almost instantly put an end to his reign of noise and fun. Janine forced the spoon out of his hand, Dad took the plate, and well, I took the sugar. I licked my index finger and dabbed at the sugar that was strewn all over the table. Take note, when it comes to disposing of stray sugar crumbs, a hungry old sister was often vastly more effective than an actual vacuum. You wanted to say something about the burglar, said Kai. Well, I went to start again and turned towards my dad. Most, if not all of the thefts happened during short periods of time when you and Janine weren't at home for a short while, and someone who doesn't live close by would never have noticed that. Maybe they could get a theft in if you publicly announced that you were going on a luxury cruise, or tried Kai to help me out, or if your mailbox was overflowing with letters. Everyone knows that. My uncle always asks the neighbor to empty his mailbox when he leaves the house for longer than 2 days. Exactly that, I said. But all of the thefts happened after you left the house for just a couple minutes. So it had to have been a neighbor watching your house just to strike the second it was left empty.